Hello everyone, Mixed Bits here, delivering what will hopefully be the first of several scripted ranting videos. Today I want to talk about just a few of the atrocious perk designs that Behavior has blessed us with. I'll be focusing on killer perks today because I think their worst of the worst is more interesting than the perks at the bottom of the survivor barrel, but I also might make a video for survivor perks in the near future. Now, before we get started, this is not a video discussing what I believe to be the weakest killer perks, just those that I think are designed poorly, though as you'll see in a minute, there's a lot of overlap between the two. With that, let's move on to my first pick. Number 5, Haywire. This perk has literally only a 4-second window of use. Show up too early or too late, it does nothing. Survivors also won't 99 exit gates when they see the perk is in play, and it's incredibly obvious when it is due to the added flashing light effect and the quick regression on the gate's progress bar. Or, if they do leave it to decay, it's because they are in a comfortable enough position to do so, in which case the perk also doesn't benefit you unless they make a big error. You might think to pair it with something like Remember Me to make the window where you can interrupt the survivors longer. In theory, this sounds nice, but due to the original 4-second window being so small, Remember Me only boosted up 6 measly seconds for a total of 10 seconds. At that point, you're still just relying on Remember Me doing its regular thing more than you are on Haywire. But let's say that everything goes according to plan and you actually do catch someone in that small window. The perk is still actually mostly useless. There are two main scenarios. One, if you close the hatch when there's only one survivor left in the trial and you interrupt them during this 4-second window, it doesn't matter that you have Haywire, you'd catch them for free anyways. 2, if there are multiple survivors pressuring a gate and you catch someone in this 4-second window, unless one of the survivors goes down in just the 4 seconds it takes for someone else to get on the gate in their place, the perk is also useless. Number 4 goes to Hex Nothing But Misery. Nothing But Misery confuses me. The effect you get from it is actually okay. Not amazing, but 5% hindered for 15 seconds is nothing to scoff at, especially on the M1 killers this was intended for, who might struggle to keep up distance-wise in a chase. This perk's problems start to show up though when we look at what you have to do to get that bonus. For starters, 8 basic attacks is a weird number. It's too many to make it worth running on killers that don't solely use M1s, but also too many to kick in fast enough on the M1 killers who could really benefit from some slightly faster chases early game. If that were the end of this perk's problems though, it wouldn't be anywhere near this list. For some reason, the devs thought it should also have to be tied to a hex totem. I cannot fathom why they thought the effect was strong enough to justify 2 rather sizable conditions. I hate to say it, but just run Rapid Brutality. Sure, the haste duration isn't as long as the hindered of Nothing But Misery, but it doesn't have to be built up and can't be taken away by eager survivors cleansing totems. That being said, I would even call this perk complete garbage, just confusingly put together. I don't hate it. While it's hard to tell how much it's helping when you're playing killer, you do feel its effects when you're playing against it as survivor. The value is there, all they have to do to Misery is lower its conditions and it'll be a solid alternative or even nice complement to run alongside Rapid Brutality. Personally, I'd say just completely remove the hex aspect and then either make the 8 hits needed able to come from anywhere, kinda like Forever Entwined, or just reduce it drastically like 4 or 5 hits. That might seem like a giant buff, and it is, but keep in mind that this thing's main competition, Rapid Brutality, is leagues better and there's currently little to no reason to run this perk over it. At number 3, I have chosen Beast of Prey. Huntress's teachables are notoriously bad, but I surprisingly only ended up with one in my top, or I guess bottom, 5 perks. The other 2 are saved by their stupid but still existent niches. Hex Huntress Lullaby, while bad on its own, nicely supplements skill check builds. As much as I hate them, they are an intended game mechanic, and this Hex is the least offensive part of them, so this perk narrowly manages not to be in the bottom 5. On the other hand, Territorial Imperative, while bad, like seriously, why does this perk have a range requirement and cooldown, is partially saved by the fact that on March 12th, 2024, Behavior blessed us with a goth girl whose perks all require you to go to the basement for you to make full use of them. This isn't even really a joke. The more things that get added to the game that revolve around chests in the basement, the larger this perk's niche gets. Don't get me wrong, the niche is still pretty rare, but the perk still kinda does what it's meant to. So even if it's very weak and could do without its unnecessary conditions, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's one of the bottom 5, but it's not far off either. That, and shoving 3 Huntress perks onto my list kinda felt like cheating. Moving on to actually talk about Beast of Prey though, the perk gives you a status effect that's largely useless in chase if the killer is good enough to hide their red stain, and the undetectable only kicks in after you've already gotten Bloodlust on them. There are several issues with this. Many killers in this game largely don't participate with the Bloodlust mechanic, and out of the killers that do, many of those are lower tier standard 115 M1 killers. You know what kind of killer makes up a lot of those? Stealth killers who already have access to undetectable in their kit. Additionally, a lot of the pellets that you might try to outplay by bloodlusting are completely unaffected by undetectable because the survivor has a clear line of vision on you the entire time. Everyone knows this perk is bad though. It's been bad since its release and is maybe the lowest hanging fruit in the entire killer perk arsenal, So let's move on to what might be a more controversial pick. Number 2, Lightborne. A lot of people seem to like this perk's existence simply because they can put it on when they see a flashlight heavy team in the lobby and not have to think when picking people up. In fact, according to Nightlight, it's the 22nd most picked perk on Killer, which is fairly high. Even as a Killer main though, I personally hate this perk. For starters, being able to just counter all the items in the lobby because you got to see what survivors were carrying before the match even started is boring to me, especially countering flashlights and flashbangs, which are comparatively weak items. I know lots of people hate quote-unquote bully squads and run Lightborne specifically to deal with them, but in my opinion this perk often just makes you lose even harder. Why? It's super easy to tell when a killer has Lightborne. One failed blind at a pallet and, congrats, the entire Swift you're so desperately trying to counter knows not to go for flashlight saves, and now instead of having survivors wasting time lurking around you to save their friend when you pick them up, they're all just going to be sitting on generators and you're going to lose just as hard, just with less interaction from the other side. The number of times I've seen a killer run Lightborne and then whine in endgame chat about gen rushing survivors is kinda amazing though, so credit there. Even if it was effective in terms of winning, it's still removing what is arguably the most fun part of Dead by Daylight for me as both killer and survivor. Altruism and countering said altruism. One-on-one chases are obviously fun, but the game is at its most tense and engaging when you have to consider multiple survivors both in and out of chase. Lightborne exists just to further lower the frequency of those fun interactions. It also encourages survivors to bring toolboxes and medikits instead, which are inarguably much stronger and much less interesting for both sides. Lastly, it also works against Blastmine for some reason. Is it thematic? Sure, but Blastmine is already not great and really only exists to bring me joy. In short, Lightborne was specifically designed by Behavior to make me sad, so it's a very welcome addition to this shit list. And lastly, for the worst designed killer perk of them all, I have chosen Alien Instinct. Behind the cute little movie reference in this perk's portrait is an abomination cursed by a dumbfounding condition, a weak effect, and competition it can't hope to match. The first issue here is that a survivor has to be injured for anything to happen, and even then, if you somehow got the whole team injured, you're only going to get a single aura read and a single application of Oblivious, which is one of the weakest statuses in the game. This injured requirement baffles me. Do they think it would be too strong without it? Why can't I at least see and make multiple injured survivors oblivious with it? I think it's trying to be thematic? At least that's what the perk icon and quote would suggest, but it fails to even do that. The scene it's referencing where Dallas gets killed by the xenomorph in the vent, spoilers I guess for Alien 1979, but in that scene, Dallas isn't like super injured or anything. He's hot and sweaty in the vent, but he's just isolated. It's not like he's limping away as the perk would suggest. And as if this wasn't bad enough, it's got some tough competition, the most obvious being barbecue and chili. You might say, oh but Cameron, you have to be a certain distance from the hook to have your aura read by barbecue. This feels a nice niche. Except no, it really doesn't. Injured survivors aren't going to want to stay near you once you started the process of picking up and hooking, so they'll likely be far away for barbecue to read their auras anyway, and the auras of other far-off survivors. But let's say you instead just want to focus on one survivor the way Alien Instinct does. Just run friends to the end. Not only is its effect stronger, it also helps more regularly because it doesn't have any sort of pesky injury requirement. What makes this even funnier to me is that they released Friends to the End right after releasing this dogshit perk that it completely eclipses without tuning up Alien Instinct in the slightest. The one singular time I got a fun clip with this perk where I caught this bill in basement, God decided that he personally would censor it by lagging my OBS so that I couldn't even accidentally convince you to run this perk. But with that, I am done complaining, so thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this new rant and or slop style content. I'll probably be making more, so any and all feedback is welcome. If you think I missed any other shittily designed perks, or if you're actually the biggest Alien Instinct fan, I'd love to discuss it in the comments because unfortunately for my friends and loved ones, I love obsessing over stuff like this. Or if you have any other DBD rant ideas for me to ethically steal, by all means, go ahead. Anyways, thanks again and have a nice day.